Do we have too much government?
We need to put people ahead of corporate profits.
This system is so lopsided. This threat is a real threat to democracy.
And I think that's really important. That's something we haven't been doing in this country for a long time.
Where do you start? What do you do? How do you do it?
Access to Democracy is sponsored by Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with the intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Products include Westlaw, Practical Law, and Firm Central legal practice management software for small law firms. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the Greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is Life Illuminated. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan, acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians. A Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology. Look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. Alan Miller here, and we have a return guest, Troy Parkinson from the Film Board.
Thanks, great to be here.
Minnesota Film TV. Now, we just earlier today had the Twin Cities Film Fest in here, so this is a natural segue.
Excellent.
Right into the Film Board. Lucinda Winter, the executive director, was scheduled to be here, last minute emergency. As happens in this business, as happens in that business, the show goes on.
Absolutely.
And here we are, happy to have you back.
Well, thanks, great to be here.
So, exciting things are happening right now.
Absolutely.
And I don't know where you want to start.
Well, you know, it's what's great about Minnesota is that we like to call it the land of 10,000 locations. And over the last 3 to 4 years, it has been home to a number of wonderful productions, in part because of its great locations, but also in part because of its great snowbait program, and it's an incentive program.
And that snowbait program is a program passed by the legislature who ignored it for a number of years. The result was that we didn't have any films. We didn't have any TV shot here. I always looked upon it. In fact, I've written several articles for the Star Tribune about it, that it's so short-sighted, because when you shoot a film here, what do? You bring in not only the stars, not only the producers, not only the directors, but all the local people. And the talent here is incredible, who are necessary to make that film work and even do the post-production work. So
absolutely. Minnesota has got a great history and a great production community. You know, for over 30 years, our organization has been in the state and committed to helping promote and support the production industry in Minnesota. Over the last number of years, and since the snowbait was reinstated back in July of 2013, we've, which with roughly over the last 4 years, about $20 million in incentive money, turned out to create about $80 million in spend in Minnesota. So with over 4,400 hires locally as well. So it's a great boom, not only in film production, but also in cable television production and commercial production as well.
And we're doing all of that now, and they go to the Film Board and to see what we can work out dollar-wise to save the production's money. At the same time, it's doing wonderful things for the community. Not only helping our tourism by exposing people to Minnesota, but also exposing them to the talent that we have here, to the state, to the beauty of the state.
Right.
And coming out with first-rate productions, not just Fargo, not just A Serious Man,
Absolutely.
but a variety of films. And so they go to the board and they say what?
Yeah, really, one of the things that we'd like to acknowledge about our industry is that this is about jobs creation. So the Snowbait falls under economic development. Our funding is through DEED, and what we really educate and let legislators know is that this is a viable industry. And what we are committed to is continuing to bring production into the state. For example, a great film that will be coming out in early 2017, March of 2017, is Wilson, starring Woody Harrelson and Laura Dern.
And that was shot here last year, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yep. That was a film that the call came into our office. They were trying to double, actually, Minnesota as Oakland, California. And that's how the conversation started. And then we had the production team come in. We scouted around town with them, brought in some of the key players in the industry to help support us in our scout. And they loved what they saw. They saw some great potential in it. And really, the industry these days is run through its incentive program. So whether it's Georgia or if it's New Mexico, to be competitive in this industry requires an incentive. And usually the first call we get from production that's out of state is, what's your incentive? And the fact that we can say we have a 20 to 25% cash rebate versus a tax credit is very enticing to production, because they do like the idea of being able to get a cash check back at the end of production.
Absolutely, rather than a credit someplace down the line. You can't spend a credit, but you can spend the cash.
Absolutely.
Which, on a lot of independent films, is really, really important, because they are shot on a very narrow budget. And a day's delay can make a big difference. So there is no question. So we have the Woody Harrelson film is going to open, Laura Dern, in March of 2017.
That's correct. And what's wonderful about that project is they had over 55 different locations for the film. And so when you talk about tourism, what will make Wilson a great film for the history of Minnesota and film production is that we will be highlighted some of the great locations throughout the Twin Cities, particularly in St. Paul as well. Some of the iconic places that make the Twin Cities are featured on screen in this film. And it'll be a great way for people to see the Metro in a way that they haven't before, or maybe it's been a while.
It wasn't too long ago also that Effie Brown shot Dear White Folks, or Dear White People, which was a well-received movie. And they shot it on the U, I think, among other places.
Yeah, and what's great is that over the course of the years, we've really been home to a lot of critically acclaimed films, from Dear White People to Kamiko the Treasure Hunter. Now with Wilson as well coming up, some of the early buzz on that is good, and home to films like The Blood Stripe, which was sort of born out of Minnesota here.
We just showed a clip from The Blood Stripe in our interview with the Film Fest.
Yes, and that will be showing at the Film Festival, at the Twin Cities Film Festival this year. A very well done film that really captures the amazing beauty of northern Minnesota. And there's a lot of joy that comes from seeing these projects in Minnesota.
And a very poignant story about PTSD.
Yes.
And what the returning veteran faces, and in a very meaningful way.
Yeah, very, very well done film.
So, I have just been reading the last few days that a housing group in the Somali neighborhood turned down Mogadishu, Minnesota.
Yes.
What's the story there? And now that's an HBO film that's being shot here.
Correct.
That is not.
Yeah, it's actually, there's a wonderful opportunity for our community, not only in the production community, but in the community as a whole throughout the Twin Cities, is an opportunity to tell an authentic Somali story. And so the writer-director Kanan wrote this pilot. It's going to be a family drama about Somali life in Minnesota. And although the location of public housing won't be utilized for the location, they are finding other locations for the project. And if the series were to go to, if the pilot were to go to series, it could be tremendous amount of work, not only for the industry itself, but new jobs as well for those within the Somali community.
And the bottom line is that we certainly have seen the prejudice that has befallen the Somali community and Muslims in general because of buffoons like Donald Trump. Ooh, I didn't say that. Did I say that? I don't want to get into a political rant because I can spend the next half hour.
Sure.
But it's true. And these people come to this country, and we've had several Somali imams on the show, and we have another one coming up shortly, as a matter of fact, to explain they want what we all want. Sure. They want to be able to raise their families in peace. They want to assimilate into the community. And a few short-sighted and prejudiced people react because they ain't like us. Well, they are like us. The skin may be darker, but they are like us. And 50 years from now, we're all going to be assimilated. And of course, 50 years from now, I'll be on a mantelpiece someplace.
And 50 years
in
from
a
now,
small box.
we'll be taking our media in through virtual reality or augmented reality. So, but what's great about programs like the HBO pilot and other films or cable television production is that it provides jobs, and it reminds folks that are in the entertainment industry that they don't have to go to Hollywood or New York to work in this industry, that they can do the work here in Minnesota.
So one of the things you do is you shoot some promo films to entice people when they're looking for a particular type of community. And you say, well, gee, Duluth would fit that picture because we've got the lake, we've got the industry, we've got the shore, we've got everything else. And I think that we have online at the last moment here a promo that the film board shot about Duluth. So let's see if we can bring that up and talk about
Absolutely.
Duluth, 4 seasons, unique locations in a beautiful city with great accommodations and up to 25% cashback incentive. You get all that? No? No problem. I'll show you. Need iconic and unique? Or how about something gritty? Could you be enticed by the largest freshwater lake in the world? How about an historic depot with vintage railroad equipment? All aboard! Maybe something sinister. Or scary. Who doesn't need a 93-cell jail built in 1923? Guard! Or a good education.
Scene of a famous murder, if I'm not mistaken.
Or a journey back in time.
The Great Gatsby.
Or a true urban jungle. Or the versatility of the longest sandbar in the world. Like I said, 4 seasons, unique locations, in a beautiful city with great accommodations, and up to 25% cashback incentive. Film Duluth.
Now that is a film that you people wrote, prepared, and shot to entice people who are looking for a specific city
Yeah.
to see what Duluth has to offer.
Absolutely. So we worked closely with Tom Livingston and Miles Hannon, both from the Duluth area, to help promote this event, this promotional piece for the city of Duluth, specifically as a filming location. We went out, we shot all of those great locations. Miles and Tom put it together because of their passion for Duluth. And this now becomes a sales piece that we use on our YouTube page, and when we want to promote Duluth to filmmakers, we'll direct them to that locations trailer, and it will inspire them about what's possible in Duluth. This Duluth trailer was also shared with the folks from Lady Dynamite, which was the Maria Bamford series for Netflix. Maria, my understanding, has really loved the trailer, and although they didn't shoot in Duluth for budgetary purpose reasons, they did shoot all of the Minnesota scenes for that series in Minnesota, and that as well became a very critically acclaimed TV series on Netflix.
Well, we go back a ways to Mary Tyler Moore, whose statue rests, well, I'm not sure if it's on Nicollet Mall right now because Nicollet Mall is being torn up,
Yes.
but really these things are important, you know. And sometimes the legislators are so short-sighted when they talk, well, we can't afford it. The fact of the matter is you can't not afford it because over and over we are helping the state. We are exposing the state to tourism. We are giving jobs to people in the state. We are using a location, restaurants, hotels, catering, the whole works. Becomes part of that film. And it makes no sense not to really use the snow bait and even advance the amount that we're giving because it entices people here.
Yeah, the idea that an incentive can infuse additional income into the community is absolutely true. You talked about those things, the local spend that a lot of people don't think about, that when a crew comes, they have to spend their money. They end up paying Minnesota taxes. They hire Minnesota crew. And the idea that any production that comes to an area in the community is putting a positive influx into that community. As an example, beyond the Twin Cities, we have had production in places like Northfield, Minnesota. Last winter they had a film there called The Last Love Letter, which was a story, a holiday story that took advantage of all of the beauty of Northfield's holiday parade. The influx that came to that community was huge, and now there's another film that's looking at Northfield as a location for a film. We've had films up in the Iron Range, and the Iron Range, actually, the IRRB service area actually has their own additional incentives. So not only can people get the 25% incentive through snowbait, but they can get the additional 20% up in the Iron Range. And although that will never fully be 45%.
Austin and Maple Grove have done the same thing, have they not?
That is correct.
Individual cities?
Yeah, and so part of what my role is with Minnesota Film and Television is that community outreach. It's educating communities like Austin as an example. Where I popped into the Austin CVB, I met with Nancy from the executive director of the CVB there, and she was wonderful. She saw the opportunity to have film production in Austin, and so she worked with city leaders to create an incentive. And what that provides us is when we're out in LA or New York promoting Minnesota as a destination, we can say you can get 25% if you shoot outside the 7-county metro. And so you may want to take a look at a community like Austin or Maple Lake. They saw and had film production there, so they created an incentive. When North Country shot up in the Iron Range, that's why they saw the benefit of production in their region, and they continued with the incentive.
And we have to work on the Egan Council to do the same thing in Egan because this is the city of Minnesota.
Yes.
I mean, Egan is just burgeoning with all sorts of opportunities right now that I could do a little Chamber of Commerce promo, but the fact of the matter is, it is just that.
Yeah. Well, and what's wonderful for communities when we do the outreach, and as a matter of fact, I was up seeing another film that was shooting up on the Superior Coast, a film called Virginia, Minnesota, which is just wrapping production actually today or early this morning at Glensheen Mansion. People love the look of Minnesota, and there is nothing quite like it. And the other nice thing about Minnesota is that it can also double as. I mean, we've had a lot of projects that come through that aren't necessarily Minnesota, but they could double as New England, or they could double in some situations as Afghanistan.
If you're looking for mansions and you start traveling in St. Paul, for instance, what is it, Sutton? Is that this-
Summit Avenue in
Summit
St. Paul.
Avenue.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one thing. If you want a modern airport, nothing more modern than Minneapolis, St. Paul at the moment. If you want modern housing, there's all sorts of modern housing developments. If you want shopping, etc. So that we do have an amalgam of so much here.
Well, and what people really enjoy as well is not only the amazing locations, and particularly a film that recently, 2 winters ago, shot was I'm Not a Serial Killer, which was a huge success at South by Southwest. It's gotten a lot of good reviews in papers as well. That's shot in Virginia, Minnesota. Billy O'Brien, an Irish director, came to the States and wanted to film where the small town was is equally a character as the actors in the movie. And Christopher Lloyd and Max Records are in that film. And when you see that film on the big screen and you see how much Virginia, Minnesota plays in that, people eat that up. Directors, producers. I've scouted a lot with producers and directors, and they love what they can find here, and that's what draws them to Minnesota.
And local people love the opportunity to be able to participate in many, many ways.
Yeah. Well, and it's not just about feature films either. I mean, our commercial industry in Minnesota is booming and thriving. We also have an amazing cable television industry with companies like Magnetic Films or Tremendous Entertainment that are doing Bizarre Foods, or you have Committee Films that recently did In an Instant on ABC, which was employed a lot of individuals and is now coming back for multiple seasons, and that was a reenactment show that talked about how life changes in an instant. So the cable television production in the community also is
How about animated films and animated comedy? How about Danger and Eggs?
Absolutely, yeah. There's the Amazon series Danger and Eggs, and the work that's done here is because people love Minnesota. It's the Minnesota nice for sure.
And the people love to be participant. I mean, my film career kicked off right here in Minnesota with Into Temptation, the Patrick Coyle film.
Yes.
And I actually got 8 seconds on screen, although I did get a film credit, in which I died. But,
on-screen death.
Yes. Well, I was dying, but
Sure.
aren't we all? So
Yeah, I mean, just briefly, since July of 2013, we've had 24 features, 54 post-productions, 64 TV commercials, 2 TV programs, 6 TV pilots, 18 TV series, 3 documentaries, and 12 internet programs. And that's all because of the Snowbait program.
and that all runs through the film board.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. Yeah, we work with projects that have a minimum spend of $100,000. And so we will work with small commercials, or commercials, I should say, that run a couple of $100,000, but also small films that may start at $100,000, all the way up to projects that run into, $5, $6, $7, $8 million.
Well, I know when I was teaching at MCTC that my students had some very ambitious projects, and ultimately, I guess they want to move to the film board if they bring it along to the point that it becomes viable.
Yeah, and there's so many wonderful organizations within the Twin Cities to support media production, whether it's IFP Minnesota, or whether there's Twin Cities Film Festival, or Minneapolis St. Paul International Film Festival, or MCAT or MCTC, U of M, SPNN as well, or any of the local public access channels, much like Egan. The ability for young people and old alike to know that they can create content and media that then they can show on public access, or they can show on larger format opportunities, is a real a gift for a community, because what it does is it infuses Minnesota with wonderful Minnesota stories. And it creates a long history as well. Like you said, 50 years from now, people are going to look back and they're going to remember the films that they saw in Minnesota.
And there were several films. Now the Metrodome is not with us any longer, but some of the baseball films that were actually shot in the Metrodome, and were Angels in the Outfield. Was that shot here?
Yes.
Yes, and there were several others. I think also baseball films.
Yeah. The highlighting areas of Minnesota and the 5 regions from a tourism standpoint, the 5 regions of Minnesota, you get so many amazing looks in the Twin Cities. You get so many amazing looks in the southern part of the state, in the central part of the state, in the northeast and northwest part of the state. That one of the joys of my job and one of the things that I love most about serving the great state of Minnesota is the ability to go out and highlight so I take a lot of location photos throughout the state as well, highlighting the great locations. And really our website, mntfilmtv.org, is the source and one of the greatest assets we have as an organization, because within that website we have all the details you need to know about getting permits in the state, what it takes to film in Minnesota. We have a production directory which lists all of the crew in the state. It's a free listing, so as viewers out there who may be in the industry who want to get their information out there so that they can get hired when productions like HBO or Fox Searchlight come to Minnesota, they look in our production directory to find crew. We also have a locations directory which highlights those amazing locations that Minnesota has to offer.
And we have so many of them. And the variety of them is what's really, I think, very important in terms of attracting film.
And one of the other elements that I love about what Minnesota Film and TV has to offer is now through our website, individuals can actually submit their own properties, whether it's a business, whether it's a home, into our locations directory. So people can go onto our website, search for locations, but if you're a homeowner or a business owner that has a property that thinks, hey, you know what, this might be an interesting location for a film or commercial or a photo shoot, they can submit now their own property up onto our website, which then, when people look at it, they see, oh, I'd like to shoot here, they can then become, get a location fee, work with the production, and have the experience of being a part of a little movie magic.
Now that's something that I didn't know, but
yeah, it's one of the
it's
newest.
just one other enticement, really.
Most definitely.
Well, The House of Tomorrow, was that a film?
Yes, House of
shot here?
Tomorrow was another great film that recently shot up in the North Branch area. It was written by a Minnesota author, and they came in. It's a Sundance Institute screenwriting project that came in and produced and shot here. It flew a little under the radar until it wrapped, and then there was some great press about it as well. Ellen Bernstein was a part of that project, and that one is looking to try to get into Sundance this year as well.
And of course, we have the Polads, who are located here, and a lot of other film people, but Polad jumps to mind because he's had several outstanding films.
Most definitely.
I think Spinning Man is set to shoot this fall, right?
Yes.
After some delay?
Yeah, Spinning Man was a project that was wanting to begin shooting in the summer, and then due to some talent issues, it got bumped, and so now they're looking at starting up here again in the fall. We have another independent film that's going to be shooting this fall as well, and that's a fun project because it's a very whimsical, magical film about fairies and the sort of the log line that they're running with is, if you liked Stranger Things, which is the Netflix series with a bit of a nostalgia, that you'll love this project because it's going to have that same feel. And the directors coming in from LA and the DP who's shot a number of things as well are coming, and so there'll be another opportunity for a great small independent.
Minnesota Film TV. The Twin Cities Film Fest starts October 19th to 29th. Troy Parkinson starts all the time with the film board. And tune in. Thank you, Troy, for coming in.
Yes, thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.